Hello, everybody. I'm John Zidar, and today we are taking a look at EPAZ Inc., ticker EPAZ on the OTC market. Now, EPAZ is a software technological company that produces software and mobile apps that help business to basically transition from one paradigm to another into blockchain, cryptocurrency, the cloud, and now the metaverse. And we are privileged to have with us today the Vice President of Communications, Michael Manahan. Hello, Michael. How are you today?
Hey, John, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we are excited to have you here. Now, I want you to start off exactly where the company did, all the way back with your first initial product, I believe it was, your Bitcoin wallet. I think that's for businesses and consumers. Is that right?
Well, the company goes back even further than that. And I think it's important to understand kind of the history. Okay. Our CEO and our leading technology expert, Sean Paisley, who has degrees up the arm in software systems and technology and coding. He saw an opportunity a number of years ago. And the opportunity was to take what I would call old legacy software systems that were written 20, 30, 40 years ago, and convert those into modern language. Because what happens is you write a piece of software. If you did that 30 or 40 years ago, it could be written in a language that just people don't use anymore. You can't automatically use that on the cloud, as an example. And there were literally thousands and thousands of software programs, specialty software programs out there. And what he said is, I can take those software programs. They may not have a huge market, but there is a market for them. And I'll give you an example. One of the very first ones that Sean worked on was a scheduling system for conference rooms. Now, a lot of companies have a conference room, okay? And if they don't have a clipboard hanging outside the room for you to schedule your meeting, what somebody did way back when was built a little software program that was designed specifically for scheduling and managing conference rooms. Well, what Sean did was he acquired that little software company, and he converted that language that was written into a cloud-based version. And now EPAZ was able to market that software to anybody, literally in the United States or around the globe, really, who would want to have a software program to manage their conference room. But that was kind of how we started.
Now, is that the initial start of DeskFlex?
One of the things that we have wanted to do is to convert or to develop applications that use leading edge technology for business purposes, because ultimately our customers were businesses. And by the way, in addition to that small software for managing conference rooms, I think we did another 20 or 25 different softwares for managing little pieces of businesses. But what happened is, as technology has moved forward, as we've moved into the world of things like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blockchain and all of that, the question is, where is that being used in business, or how do we make applications where that type of thing can be used in business? And that really has been kind of the focus. And again, because Sean is again, I'm going to call him my personal opinion, but I know the man. He really is a software genius, and he sees the opportunity of how we can take these leading edge kind of technology things that are happening and develop business applications around them. And that's kind of the backdrop and the backstory. And now, if you want, we can talk about some of the specific applications that we've been developing and working on and are using now, and how those things work in the marketplace.
Please, absolutely.
Well, certainly you mentioned ZenaPay. ZenaPay is a system that allows for customers to pay for products using cryptocurrency. It was really the fundamental behind ZenaPay. And, one of the impetuses for the development of that was the cannabis industry. The cannabis industry, it's now become legal in 35 some odd states.
Right.
Some are still just medical only, but some are recreational cannabis. But because of the unique kind of structure of the American financial system, cannabis is legal, but
not bankable.
So if I go into my local cannabis store and whip out my American Express and say I want to buy $50 worth of weed, I can't do it.
Right.
So the idea of ZenaPay was to develop a platform that would allow for people to be able to pay for things like cannabis using backed up by cryptocurrency. So you're kind of bypassing the traditional credit card banking system. And that's just an example of the types of things that, that we've been developing with ZenaPay. As an individual, you can have your own wallet, if you will. Your wallet contains cryptocurrency, and you can then use your wallet to pay for things like purchasing cannabis at a cannabis store. That's one of our products.
Now, you said in some of your news presses that it's based on Bitcoin and Ethereum, but you were planning on adding more cryptocurrencies. Do we have any more added yet?
I'd have to go back and look at the software, but clearly what our focus was to put in some of the more common cryptocurrencies, which we did. As you know, there's many cryptocurrencies out there, but we wanted to include ones that people would want to own, number one, and number two, that a seller who was selling a product would want to get paid with. And you might not want to get paid with some odd, obscure cryptocurrency, but everybody's familiar with Ethereum, everybody's familiar with Bitcoin, and so those were the ones that we focused on, initially.
Right. All right. And then you moved into, as I said, Dex DeskFlex, which I see is very versatile. You've got it focused right now in telemedicine, but it can really be used in a lot of applications, can it?
Yeah, DeskFlex is really, I call it the next stage of kind of what we're doing right here, which is I'm looking at a flat screen. You're looking at a flat screen. I can't touch you. I can't feel you. My senses are basically pretty much limited to what my two eyes can see.
Right.
We've talked about things like the metaverse and these virtual reality types of things, and really what DeskFlex is kind of a new entrant into how we enhance the virtual meeting setting, where we could actually, through that program, we could assign ourselves an avatar, and we could literally be in a virtual conference room where we're looking at virtual characters. One is you, one is me. We could pass things back and forth. We could look at things together. We could touch each other. It's just enhancing and moving forward using a combination of leading edge technology and also trying to develop business applications. Everybody knows about a lot of this stuff is being used in things like gaming. Okay. Right. And that's great for people who want to play games. And it's by the way, it's a huge market, people who want to play games. But how do you take something that's being used for games and use it in a business setting? How do you use it to improve what I call the flat screen Zoom type of office experience?
Sure.
And that's where we're moving with Dex DeskFlex. It's kind of developing business applications around these leading edge technologies that may not be being used for business purposes right now. They're being used for things, as I say, like gaming. Well, that's great. But how do we now take those and use them to enhance what businesses are doing? And that, by the way, is the focus of all of the projects we're working on at EPAZ. We're not developing anything for games. We're not an entertainment company. We're saying, how do we make business applications that use leading edge technologies, and really that is the focus of the company.
And DeskFlex is now moving into telemedicine, your metaverse version of DeskFlex, I guess you'd call it.
Yes, and I'm going to just be perfectly honest. I'm not 100% specifically sure how that application works in detail, but we have targeted certain areas that we think where this program will be more applicable. And as you know, telemedicine is really good. I get a kick out of this because, 5 years ago, before COVID, the medical community was, you can't do medicine over the telephone. You can't do it over the internet. You've got to come into my office. And if you don't come into my office, well, right after COVID started, it was funny. I got an infection in my finger. I don't know how I got it, gardening or something like that. The end of my finger all swole up. I called the doctor. The doctor organized a telemedicine thing, and I was doing something fairly similar to what I'm doing with you, and I held my finger up like this, and the doctor looked at it and she says, "Oh, you've got an infection. I'm going to write you a prescription for some antibiotics." And I said, "This is crazy. 2 years ago you wouldn't have done that, but now you are." Well, that's great, but this is still pretty primitive in terms of diagnostics. So how do we fix that? And that's really what we're focused on, is how do we take that telemedicine experience to the next level? How do we make it even better so the doctor or the clinician can do a better job without seeing you in the office? And not only is telemedicine growing like crazy. In fact, my doctor called me the other day and said, "You need to follow up, and you're due for an appointment." And I says, well, when should I come into the office? And she says, "We would prefer to do it by telemedicine." So now this is the preference. They don't even want you to come into the office. That's because the doctor's sitting on the beach down in the Bahamas, I think.
Yeah, it's easy to do on the tablet to talk to your patients, isn't it?
Exactly. So, that's one of the things that we're working on, and again, it's a massive change in the way healthcare is delivered. Probably one of the most significant changes that's happened in the last, 40 or 50 years.
Right.
But there's probably going to be a lot of those doctors' offices. The doctor, she got me on the phone. She says, well, it was some kind of a Zoom call, some kind of a platform like you're using. And she says, well, now, do you have your blood pressure machine for taking your own blood pressure? And do you have a machine for checking the oxygen? And I've now have become my own doctor's office and have all this equipment to take care of it myself.
Now, along with the DeskFlex three-dimensional metaverse, you guys are producing your own metaverse goggles, headset, whatever you want to call it. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah, because to really, for this metaverse to work, you have to embed yourself into this virtual environment. And it's kind of like, remember the movie Avatar, where the guy sat down in some kind of a machine, and then he somehow projected himself into this world.
Right.
It's kind of similar to that, except you don't have to lie in a machine, but you do wear a special set of goggles, and the goggles interface. I call them not goggles. I'm going to call them glasses, but they interface with the software system so that it allows you to enter the virtual environment and just act like you would normally act. So, as an example, where I'm sitting right now, I'm looking at you. I can see what's behind you, but if I turn my head, I can't see what's to your left or
Right.
see what's to your right. But once you're in the virtual environment, you will be able to do that. I will be able to look and see, because we will both be in some imaginary, if you will, room together. But because we're using these special glasses that are tied into the special software, we will perceive that we're actually sitting in a conference room together having a conversation. And when I look to the left, I'll see the other end of the conference room. When I look behind me, I don't know, it might be I'm looking out the window over a lake or a road or something. It really will be just as if you were there, but you need these special glasses to make it.
And you guys are planning on selling them for less than $100, I read.
Yeah, it's because it's the expensive piece is the software. It's not the glasses themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, you've also started a whole new facet to your business, Cryobo, where you're creating tokenized economies where you can actually invest in, say, real estate now. Isn't that right?
Yeah, this is, I think this is really just one of the most exciting things we're doing. And part of it is because throughout my career, I have been involved in real estate and real estate syndication, both as an investor and working for companies that syndicated real estate. Now, for people who don't understand what that means, I'm a developer. I want to build an apartment building. The apartment building is going to cost me $5 million. I'm going to end up with, 100 units, apartment rental units. Now, in order to raise that money, I will syndicate the project. I will open it up to investors. And the typical business form we use for that is an LLC, limited liability company. Everybody's heard of LLCs, and
Sure.
I sell membership units. And maybe I'm raising the project's $5 million. Maybe I'm going to put $1 million in. I'm going to raise $4 million. I sell the units, $25,000 a piece. And John, if you invest $50,000, you get 2 membership units in my real estate project.
Mm-hmm.
But now a year goes by, you want to sell those membership units. Who do you sell them to? Nobody. I mean, and in
Right.
some cases with those, you might go back to the original syndicator. He might agree to buy them from you, or you might try to convince your brother-in-law to buy them.
Right. You're probably stuck more often than not.
Exactly, until such time as the project is finally wound down, which could be 5, 6, or even 10 years down the road. But what we're able to do with Cryobo is create a token. So rather than a paper certificate in an LLC, you'll get a token. It's an electronic token that then can be traded on a token exchange. So you will be able to put that token up on the exchange and sell it if you need to.
Right.
The other thing is the token's value will be fixed to the value of the project.
Mm-hmm.
So as the project is developed, as it is leased up, as it produces cash flows,
right.
and as the underlying asset increases in value, so will the token increase in value.
Right.
So it just, I hate to predict the future, but I think we will see a time when the old limited liability company and giving somebody a paper certificate that say you own a piece, you're a participant in this particular real estate project, that's going to go by the wayside. And for people who maybe aren't in the industry, you may not realize how big this is, but there are literally hundreds of thousands of real estate projects that get syndicated every single year in the United States. And so our tokenization of those real estate projects will just change the way the whole syndication process is done. Now, I will want to tell you something, because we are highly regulated in the United States. This isn't necessarily coming tomorrow. It's moving forward. But we're already doing this and working on projects that are not in the United States, in countries that have more favorable rules and regulations as to how syndications get done. And I think once we've done this successfully in some other countries, you will, once it's the pattern is there, this is how it's done. Then the
I
US,
think I read Cyprus was one of the countries you were targeting.
I believe Cyprus, and I think Dubai is also another one.
Right.
United Arab Emirates.
I really like the tokenization for the simple reason it allows the little guy to get into the big game. The way you were talking about investing, I don't know how much the tokens are going to cost, but I got to figure it's probably a lot less than an LLC document.
Well, yeah, and then part of it is because when you do an LLC, all of that paperwork is very expensive. You've got subscription agreements, you've got operating agreements. You can't take a $1,000 investments. It's too paper intensive. It's too much work. So typically on those syndications, usually a minimum investment is like, I got a friend of mine. This is what he does for a living. He syndicates apartment buildings, and typically he wants a $25,000 or $50,000 investment because it's just too much trouble to deal with somebody who only wants to put in $5,000. But with the tokenization, because the other thing is about tokens, just like Bitcoin, you can buy a part of a Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Okay. You don't have to buy the whole Bitcoin.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So similarly, we anticipate that part of the exchange for tokens may allow you to buy less than a full token under some and certain circumstances. Mm-hmm. But also when you form the token, just because it's so much easier to sell the token and trade the token and create the token, you might do them for $1,000 as opposed to $25,000 or $50,000, which, as you say, is going to just allow more people to participate. It's all of this technology is leveling the playing field. It used to be, and you're old enough to remember this, I certainly do, but all the money was made on Wall Street was made by a bunch of folks in New York, right?
Right, sure, absolutely.
40 years ago. I mean, I remember even back in the 90s, I had a stockbroker, and if I wanted to sell a stock or buy a stock, he charged me $200 or $300 to trade stock. And now I can go on to TD Ameritrade and I can trade stock for nothing. It really has leveled the playing field and made it so average people can participate in all of these investment opportunities that used to only be available for a bunch of people who, by the way, kept the door closed intentionally so they could make all the money, in my opinion.
Right. Is there anything we didn't cover that you think our investors would want to know about your company?
Well, one of the other products that we've been using is our system that we're using to enhance yields on crops, and that this is a software system that we developed. And what happens is it's being used in the hemp growing industry right now, being used in Europe. I'm not a biologist, but apparently to maximize crop yields, you need the right number of male plants and the right number of female plants.
True.
Too many males or too many females, you don't maximize crop yields. Mm-hmm. So our software system is used with a drone. The drone flies over the field. Our software is able to identify a male plant or a female plant.
Really?
Yes. And then the software system comes back and says to the people who are managing the field, you've got, too many females over here, too many males over there. You need to go in and cull the plants or move them around. And what ends up happening is you increase the yield off of a plot of land. And by the way, we're talking significant increases in yield. We're talking perhaps getting another 30% yield out of an acre of land. Now, when you think about it, if you can increase your yield off an acre of land by 30%, you're talking a lot of additional money off of a crop.
Yes, you are.
So that's what the system is doing.
Incredible.
And it's using a combination of drones, which is modern technology,
Yes.
recognition, where the software is able to recognize, just kind of like facial recognition.
Right.
The software is able to recognize, oh, you look like a male plant, you look like a female plant, and it's able to put that into a report, and that then the person managing that field can use to go and cull plants or add plants in order to improve pollination of the plants, which improves crop yield.
Do we see that technology coming over here to the U.S. and being used?
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be. Yeah. And I'm not going to say, I'm not a biologist. It probably is applicable to certain crops and
Right.
not other crops, because different crops propagate different ways.
True.
I don't know if you could use it with wheat as an example, but you can definitely use it with hemp. And of course, a relative of hemp is cannabis.
Right.
And so it could be used with cannabis, as well.
It's interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. And out there, some biologists probably would know how to use it for some other crops. I just don't know enough about different crops. But there's so many crops that are grown out there. Agriculture is a massive business, globally, and if we're going to feed people, we need to increase food production. And even if this can only have a marginal effect, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10%, that's still a huge amount of additional food for not only the grower who's going to be able to sell the food, but for you and I who are going to eat the stuff.
Well, does that pretty much cover it, or is there something you'd like to add? Because I know you've got a lot going on.
I just like to reemphasize that, we're not an entertainment company. We're not a gaming company. We are a company that focuses on business applications. Businesses around the globe use software. We all know that. Software drives industry. Okay. And we're just using not all, but as many of the latest technological innovations in the metaverse, in fintech, in cryptocurrency, in blockchain transactions, in order to develop business applications that we can then sell to businesses and, of course, make money off of those. So that's the first thing I would say, that, we are fundamentally a business software company. The second thing I would like to say is, keep your eye on us, because we are what I like to call an undiscovered gem. I mean, we're not being written up in the Wall Street Journal. We're not being interviewed on, on money, on Fox Business yet.
Yeah.
And that's where the opportunity arises. It's people who get in early, in on the game.
That's
They're
right.
They're the people that get the rewards. And I wish I'd invested in Bitcoin 10 years ago. I didn't. Yeah. So, I encourage you to have a look at us, and, go to our website and, do some research. If you have questions, send us questions. But we are, and by the way, we also are a company that has revenues and has positive cash flow. So we're not like some startup that we haven't sold anything yet. We have revenues coming in the door, and we have positive cash flow. So we are a real business. And of course, I just, appreciate everybody listening, and thank you so much for your interest.
We thank you for your time, Michael. You can get more information about EPAZ at epaz.com. Again, their ticker is EPAZ on the OTC market. They are going places, and now would be a good time to take a look at them. Thank you, Michael, for being here. Hopefully we can do this again, and you can catch us up with progress on the company.
John, I really, really appreciate you giving us the time to be on your show. And I've loved my conversation with you. You're obviously a very intelligent and savvy individual. And just thank you very much.
You bet. Have a great day.